G'day folks. For a quick little video tonight, I just thought I'd show you something I discovered at work today. Now this is, although not functional, this is a healthy looking Curtis DC controller. 12282901. That's the model. 12282901 is the model. 24 volt DC, 110 amp in this case. The other one we're going to look at, 70 amp. It's a much older model that we had a lot of problems with. And well, 99.9% of them are out of circulation now. I think I actually have one in here somewhere, which works intermittently. The capacitors are all blown out on it and it works intermittently, and this one here, I think someone threw it in the skip because it was dead. It's probably repairable, so I'm just hanging on to it. I mean, the caps aren't blown out or decoupled from the board, so I don't know what's going on there. I'm guessing one of these MOSFETs might have failed. So that's a fairly healthy looking DC controller. So we'll pop him back in there and put that together later. Now, there's a reason this is inside 2 Ziploc bags. And even with 2 Ziploc bags, I can still smell it. Very strong. Plus it's still on my hands from like 6 hours ago when I first pulled it out of the machine. This is the worst failure I've ever seen, or anyone at work has ever seen, of one of these controllers. Like, this thing would have been smouldering. It looked like they took the top off the machine and smashed the toggle switch to try and stop it from running the winch drum. Because these are coupled to a 24 volt 600 watt motor that drives a winch. And yeah, the first thing I noticed was that. Melted Spade terminals coming from the battery. And they literally come off the board. So you can see where this is going. Not to mention the staining around the connectors. Yuck. And then that, when I had it off the board. I mean, it was mounted to a block of 50mm thick UHMWPE, UMPE. And if it wasn't mounted to that, this probably would have caught fire. But luckily, it's mounted hard up against a block of UMPE and no real amount of air could get in and sustain a burn. But this machine would have been spewing smoke and running its winch drum constantly, so they popped the top off it and smashed the toggle switch to stop it. Which probably didn't work, because it looked like it burnt away to the point where these were gone, and if I wiggled them while they were still connected to the batteries, I got a few nice little arcs and flashes. 40 amp circuit breaker hadn't tripped either, although a test tripped it, and it did work. So, where is it? Yeah, the 2 amp one's just for another control circuit, which is irrelevant, but this is the one for the motor, and that was still on. I don't know if someone had tried to reset it after the machine got to my work, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who actually tinkered with it. So, yeah, unless someone else had gotten in there and turned it back on to try and make it work again, I can only assume that this breaker didn't do its job. But it does work, it does trip at 40 amps. So this thing must have been sitting right on the limit and just burning away, smouldering. So anyway, where's something to pop the cover open? Yeah, that's kind of nasty. I've never seen one this bad. See, there's the DC negative trace. The DC positive's just carbonised, it's all gone. It looks like the burn started at the main cube relay that you can see on the other one. That's just horrific. And the smell is just something else. It's like microwaving a computer board, essentially. I've smelt this smell a million times before, and it always brings back memories of microwaving electronic boards and other things you shouldn't microwave. It's exactly what it is. It's just fiberglass layered, multi-layered printed circuit board. Now you'll note this is a 12282420. It's a different model and it's a 70 amp model. If I can get that in focus somewhat. So it's a lighter model. Most of these are gone and we had problems with them anyway. I think we were driving them too hard to start with. And yeah. Like, it's fairly old. It's probably like 12 years old or something like that. I had fun getting this apart originally. I've had it apart before, but it was all stuck together, as you can see. That's bad. And that's even worse. It's blown one of the caps up, probably due to heat. And the relay is just completely melted and burned up. So I'm guessing the failure probably started in the relay, which happens to have a diode built into it. Maybe that went bad, and it's just gone all the way through it. Now if I looked at the service notes that were written under the lid of the machine, my service note from 2011 was that the black lead, the negative lead from the battery, the plastic insulator had melted on it, but the lead was loose. So I assumed that it was loose. It was trying to transfer a lot of amps with this motor, and it just got a little bit hot and melted that. So I checked everything out. The controller was fine. I might have even resoldered the pins on the actual Spade connector and put the controller back together again. But a call out about 6 months ago, the circuit breaker was tripped, but there was nothing obviously wrong. So they reset the circuit breaker, and up until now it was working fine, and then this happened. So the controller's been on its way out for a while, which is my guess. I mean, nothing else, everything else tested fine in the machine, even though I completely stripped it and replaced all the old style loom, the twin circuit breakers with a single one. I just remodeled the whole machine for today's standards. But this is just crazy. Like, if it wasn't as well contained as it was, this would have actually started a fire. And everything's covered in this nasty smelling residue. Like, my hand's going to stink from now on. Really bad. So yeah, it's worse than that. It's dead, Jim. I can honestly say that much. And I gotta love Star Trek references. Everyone gets them. So yeah, that's today's little equipment autopsy. One of the most badly destroyed Curtis speed controllers I've ever seen. I'll pop it back together and chuck it in its bag. I don't think Work's ever going to want to do anything with it. Like, it's nothing... I don't know if it'd be a manufacturer error. It's not a manufacturer error. Well, there's the date on it, 1999. It's done pretty well. It's more than likely it's just old and it's had a breakdown, and because there's no real way of stopping it, it's just had a meltdown. There's not much you can do if it doesn't trip the circuit breaker that you put in there to protect the wiring. Like, you short the wiring out and it'll trip the circuit breaker, but clearly the tracing and arcing that was going on in there is not quite enough to take out the 40 amp D-curve breaker. So yeah, that was an interesting find, and the machine itself still stinks despite half a can of contact cleaner and a pile of rags cleaning the crap off the umpy block and the lid. Like, everything's covered in this sooty, smoky residue. So it'll take a while for the machine to stop stinking, but it certainly works a lot better than it ever has, with a brand new 110 amp controller, new loom, heaps of work. I did heaps of work on it. It's about 4 hours worth of work, but the machine's good as new now, so yay, everything's good. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. I'm going to get this stinky thing out of here. God, it's bad. It's worse than the bloody Panasonic microwave after I nuked that board with all the caps on it.